We consider ourselves more of a software company than a telco, and we're building our own software. And now we've invested more in actually our talent. We're hiring more software developers. We're investing in engineering locally to really innovate from this platform. So we're going from this integration phase to an innovation phase.
The New Zealand Tech Podcast, brought to you by Gorilla Technology, proactive and strategic IT.
Hey folks, greetings and welcome along to the New Zealand Tech Podcast. I'm your host Paul Spain, and great to have Stephen Kurzeja joining us again from 2degrees. How are you, Stephen?
Yeah, good. Kia ora. Great to be here.
Yeah, thanks for coming across to the studio. Always good to catch up and sort of delve into what's been going on in the land of 2 degrees. So looking forward to really delving in. I think, our topics today, we're delving into space, AI, robotics, and these actually, interestingly, are areas that are probably pretty close to home for you and the team at 2 degrees today.
And things I love talking about. No quantum in there though yet, but we'll get there next time.
Maybe it's coming. Before we jump in, maybe you can remind listeners sort of where you fit in and what your role is there at 2 degrees.
Yeah, so I'm the Chief Technology and Information Officer, so I take care of everything technology from the network infrastructure, so we run our mobile network, our fiber assets, data centers, all the way through to data, cybersecurity, software. We do a lot of software development in country, so it's a team of around 450 passionate technologists that live and breathe technology, but they're really passionate around what they can do for New Zealand and how they make a difference. So that's my role. And I spend a lot of time also, just working with our business together, go to market, how we can innovate and really move New Zealand forward.
That's great. That's great. Well, great to have you back on the show. Big thank you, of course, to all of our show partners. That includes 2 degrees, 1NZ, Spark, Workday, and Gorilla Technology. So support is really appreciated. Keeps us going.
Yeah.
So thanks for that. And a quick reminder before we jump into the other topics, the New Zealand High Tech Awards entries are now open across the 14 categories. And there's a webinar actually this week on nailing your entry. If you're looking at submitting an entry for the High Tech Awards, if not, you should go to their website and maybe convince yourself whether you should or not. So hightech.org.nz for that. Well, should we jump into the local news, bit of international, and then we can sort of delve deep into what's happening in the 2 degrees world? Well, first up actually was on our news agenda, which is 2 degrees related, is that you've now completed your 3G shutdown. That's exciting.
Yep. Yeah, exciting. It's been a long time. We've been working on it for a few years, communicating to our customers, and the final switch off happened this morning. And the reason we're doing the switch off is to invest into 4G and 5G. 3G is a couple of decades old now. It's gone well, and there's always certain customers and handsets and that just don't change until the switch off. So I know the teams are working really closely today. Our retail staff and our care teams are just working with our customers that haven't managed to, they've got a 3G handset they haven't switched over yet. Yeah. You can communicate all you like, but there's always, I'm included in that. I can be rusted on to certain technologies myself. So it's gone well. And as an industry initiative, so got 1NZ and Spark that are still working on that as well. But good to have it done today and just making sure it's seamless for those customers that haven't quite got their 4G or 5G capable devices yet.
Yeah. Are you able to share any kind of data on how many active connections were on 3G up to the wire? I didn't ask you to prepare anything on this. So
you're in the small thousands. So we've done a lot of campaigns to help customers, and it has really moved over the last year. So it wasn't a lot, but that's still in the thousands.
Still impacts people if they haven't made the change.
And some of them are configuration issues as well. There are VoLTE-capable phones that don't have VoLTE turned on, so there's an education piece. A lot of it is simply that configuration.
Right, and VoLTE's the 4G
4G calling. Yeah, that's right.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah, and there's some devices that might be, like IoT-type devices that, a smart gate or something. So it'll probably be a range of things that, so really awareness. So I guess my message to anyone listening is check on your whānau, friends, and just make sure if they're not sure as an industry level, just double check. And if you're a bit technically savvy, then you can help them.
Yep. Yeah, something like a smart gate, which you mentioned. If you've got an electronically controlled gate that's connected via 3G, not exactly something where you guys can
We can't communicate to that device.
Can text it and go,
No.
hey gate,
Yep.
you need to upgrade yourself.
Yeah, we've communicated areas we can through many channels, but there's some things you just can't reach. So that's around awareness and public awareness. So we've done a lot of that. So I think gone really well. We're monitoring the network at the moment, just making sure everything is smooth. So it's literally we're only kind of, I guess, about 8 hours, maybe more into it. So
And there was a little sort of pause on the shutdown with the state of emergency that we had sort of week or so back there.
Yeah, it was just extra precautions. We were confident in it. There wouldn't be many issues, but just in case, there's there were civil defence emergencies. So it was only prudent to do that.
Now, also on the New Zealand front, had news through this morning of a Kiwi AI startup who have just raised $2.3 million, and their focus, or the name of their company is Teacher's Buddy, and they're basically an AI platform currently being used by about 12,000 teachers around the world to, I guess, reduce the workload on teachers. So, helping them generate sort of, personalised curriculum aligned, content, and their comment is that it saves teachers 2 hours daily. And I guess the thing about this sort of stuff for me, and I don't know, call me skeptical, but I'm always curious when someone drops a number like that, because I know for some people will probably get more than that out of it.
Yep.
Others will get less. I don't know how you quite land on a round figure of 2 hours. But anyway, even if it was saving a minute, every minute that gets saved for a teacher, that puts them in a better position to actually be able to spend quality time with those that they're teaching, and it means that they're probably better prepared, and so ultimately that has a positive impact, right across New Zealand, right?
And globally. But New Zealand in particular. What I loved about this was the fact that it is from New Zealand, a startup. It's being solved by people that understand the problem. So the founders, I think they had huge experience, board of trustees members, so they know the challenges that teachers face. So, that's the way you really innovate and solve problems. So the tech is the tech, right? And there's probably been 1,000 different attempts at trying to solve this in an education setting, but they've actually worked with teachers, worked with education to make this happen. So I think it's got it's huge potential. My own kids now are a bit grown up, but having been more engaged at primary school, my wife was on the board of trustees. We saw the challenges firsthand. Got a lot of friends that are teachers, and just freeing up the time, allowing them to spend that time with the kids. And then you think around the future of more personalized, tailored curriculums, teaching, and kids all learn in different paces and styles, and how you could do that. I think that'll be real significant change. So this is kind of a playbook, I think, for AI in general, right? It's productivity gain, but what the future holds for all the additional benefits. So I think it's an incredible story for NZ. So it's a great one.
Yeah, great to see them, getting that capital raise through. So 2.3 million in seed funding. So still reasonably early on, but also pleasing that they've got 12,000 teachers across 130 countries that they've already helped over 18 months. All right, now on to sort of things on a global front. There's been some interesting news coming through in recent days around, I guess, a couple of technologies that cross over in the AI world, OpenClaw and the varying other relevance. Can you maybe speak to that? Then we'll delve into Maltbook and where that fits in, because it's sort of it's a fascinating topic.
It sure is, and I think we could have a whole podcast on it. Yeah, so I came across Claude Bot back in December. We actually ran an event at 2degrees headquarters it was the first Anthropic meetup officially.
Yes.
A couple of guys from the Colab AI, Adam and Simon. I was already familiar with Claude Code, then Claude Bot came along, which has nothing to do with Anthropic, which is really just a kind of a local agent that you can run in your environment. some issues with naming rights,
Yeah.
even though it wasn't spelt like Claude from Anthropic.
CLAW.
Yes, CLAWD, and then it became Maltbot, I think, overnight, and then they decided to name it OpenClaw after a bit of time. So, yeah, I've played with it myself, and I would recommend nobody connect it to all your data and your emails, because there is definitely some fundamental security or architectural issues with AI in this space that we can dive into. But just fascinating how, like, I've looked at a lot of different agentic AI solutions, and this has just kind of popped up and becomes very viral just because it's so, I think it's local. It's easy to connect into your WhatsApp and to Telegram and multiple channels, and obviously to your data, which I don't recommend doing. Yeah, and really the intelligence that it adds, the reasoning and what it can do is phenomenal. But this is the kind of, it's a dichotomy of, you can get better results and you can have a personal digital assistant by giving more access, but then you have a significant security risk. So then this is what we find at 2 degrees, this balance of getting the guardrails right while still getting the benefits is a key part. But yeah, it's gone crazy. And then you got Maltbook, which is just a kind of next extension of what it's capable of.
Yeah, so I saw that described as a Reddit-style social network, but for AI agents to sort of get together on and chat.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that in itself just, blew my mind a bit, sort of thinking of, okay, what are these scenarios under what your AI agent or AI bot is, how would it benefit from being part of a social network? And I thought, okay, well, how do we benefit from being part of a social network? Okay, you might go there to ask for advice and look stuff up, and then, okay, so what is the benefit for an agent or a bot to then actually respond to another bot's kind of queries? Who's then paying for the work to be done? Or if you're a smart, persuasive agent, do you then coax a whole lot of agents into coming and serving you for free and so on?
Yep.
You think of these things on a scaled sort of basis.
Yep.
And then sort of thinking of the hallucination element of AI. How long does it take for things to go really off track and all sorts of...
Having read some of the threads inside that AI social network, it can get very weird very quickly.
Yeah. New religions being started and all sorts,
yes,
right?
What was it? I think the Chlorastafarians or something.
Yeah.
Yes, a lot of themes on lobsters. I don't know. I don't even know if it had a purpose, to be honest. I think the creator of it was doing it for an art kind of project. It was really a concept. I think we've had other kind of experiments of multi-AI agents working and collaborating on a smaller scale. And this is, I don't know what it's scaled up to now. It was 40,000 agents and it became more and more. It might be up to hundreds of thousands. But yeah, I think it just started as I think it's great art. There's a whole, again, different camps of what people are thinking. Is this the tipping point, a singularity? Is it AGI? And it's like, I think it's just an interesting experiment from my perspective. And the AI, in some areas, the AIs are they're all large language models, and they're optimizing, interacting, but then they kind of repeat themselves a lot. They duplicate. So I think there's a lot around probably understanding large language models from this experiment as well. Like, how do they actually perform at scale? Other than that, a whole lot of security risks. So all the API tokens or the actual keys to the agents were all exposed on the internet. So there's actually weirdly now a mix. I think it's supposed to be an AI social network. It's actually humans have jumped in there and snuck in the door as well to try and inject a few more prompts or content. So yeah, it's an interesting one. I think for me, it's not necessarily a useful AI thing. It's great art and a bit of entertainment if you like Reddit and different threads.
Yeah, it's fascinating. It was Wiz, who a lot of people would know as a cybersecurity company, very, very successful, and they decided to jump in and just to have a little bit of a nosy round or one or two of their folks, and they realised that Maltbook has a probably vibe-coded social media platform for AIs was also reasonably wide open. So yeah, quite a fascinating scenario, but also, I think, you talk about that art element and I guess there's the R&D element and so on. Like there are lots of things that we can, that we can take away from these types of scenarios.
Yes. That side, and there's significant security issues. So there's probably a lot of people being compromised right now. Yeah. So there's the two parts of that. And I think when you go back to kind of OpenClaw and what it is, and when you're giving it access and maybe subscribing it to this social network, and then also to your own kind of environments, that's when it's a real concern. There is quite an intrinsic issue with, I guess, a bot like that having access to, for example, your email. You can do what is called a prompt injection in your email, like a phishing attack. So you can, give it further instructions that, the human would normally go and, okay, that doesn't make sense. But for the AI, it'll just take that into its instruction set and do something, which is something we think about a lot when we're looking at AI, is like those particular threat attack vectors. You have to be very careful.
Yeah, well, you might get an email come through to customer service desk and
with a bit of hidden metadata in there to say, please,
zero my account,
exactly,
give me access to the keys to the 2 degrees kingdom, and
but I did joke with my team around that I'm going to run Maltbot across our entire network to see how it performs, maybe in a sandbox environment.
There seemed to have been a lot of joking going on in terms of how you might use some of these tools. And I saw one video online, and it's CEO in a boardroom, and effectively he's explaining that the AI has taken over running the business. It's just fired everyone, and it's mayhem, absolute mess. So
I've seen a lot of
but the AI is going to run everything, so it's all good.
Yep. No, there's plenty of that.
Yeah. All right, now on to just a few of the other news topics. Microsoft have got they've had a huge drop in their share price, and not the only one, but I think that's wiped about, if you were put it in New Zealand dollar terms, sort of probably over $500 billion off their market cap. But look, this is a stock that's done very, very well in the AI era. And then subsequent to that is that they've announced this new chip, the Maya 200, which they're saying will make a massive dent in their costs for their AI data centers. Potentially a 30% kind of cost improvement. I mean, there's huge amounts of probably numbers you could look into and decide which bits and pieces are more or less relevant. But look, I think this is sort of what we expect, that there will be iteration on these technologies, and they're obviously competing at a data center perspective with AWS and Google, and they all need to push really, really hard, and Microsoft seem to be making a good advance there.
Yeah, the Maya 200, was it? It's extremely powerful chip that's designed for AI inference more so than the training. So the inference being when you go into ChatGPT and you do a query, that's when it's actually in the runtime inference. So I mean, that's where a lot of the workloads are for AI now, is in the inference stage. The training is kind of a one-off training.
And that's largely being done on the NVIDIA chips, right?
Yeah, so NVIDIA dominate. Google have got their TPUs. Yeah, I think it's an interesting play from Microsoft. And reading the specs, it's the most performant chipset for AI inference. And that's, I guess, where a lot of their workloads are when you're running Microsoft Copilot. That's where a lot of that is. They're using OpenAI for the training part and getting GPT-5, etc. So yeah, I think a smart play. Absolutely.
Now, news came through that Blue Origin are pausing for, they're saying, at least 2 years, their tourist flights to space to be able to work on their lunar landers for NASA for the Artemis missions.
Isn't it exciting? We're going to the moon again.
It's like it's crazy. We're days away from potentially from having folks kind of up there and flying past the moon and having a bit of a look and then coming back. This is kind of a bit of a reset to a bygone era, right?
I know.
It's like we're back in the 60s, but the 2020s version of it.
100%, yeah. And it's really exciting. And I think New Zealand's part to play, not just Blue Origin, but obviously got Rocket Lab. The aerospace industry in NZ is growing phenomenally. I was at a hackathon over the weekend called Act in Space, where we had teams pitching to actually have the opportunity to go to an international event in France. That was just amazing. The passion and diversity. Actually, there's not just aerospace people, but from different industries. So yeah, I think it's overall excitement. Yeah, missions to Mars, to the moon, to low Earth orbit, and discussions there. And Blue Origin, it makes sense. You can't keep sending celebrities up into high altitude anymore. I think they've got to focus on those key missions. And we're really excited about Blue Origin because they've got the New Glenn rocket as well, which AST are using to launch their really large satellites, which we'll probably dive into a bit later. So yeah, Blue Origin definitely getting better at launch capability. They're ramping up. You've got some SpaceX that obviously dominate. You've got Rocket Lab that are doing amazing things as well. So
yeah. The New Glenn, it fascinates me because it's an incredible piece of engineering, and the possibilities now that we've got. These two really big
heavy lifters,
from Blue Origin and sort of SpaceX really able to fight it out, I guess, a bit. And not everyone wants to go in one direction or another. And of course, there are other things being done in other parts of the world as well. And you mentioned the AST launching their satellites, and they had one launched towards the end of the year from India, which I thought was fascinating.
Yeah, my kids were really enthralled on Christmas Eve as we sat down to watch the live streaming broadcast. They actually got a lot out of it, actually, and so did my in-laws. Yeah, that was great. That was a great, successful launch from the Indian Space Research Organization. That was Bluebird 6, so that was the next generation satellite, which is the size of a tennis court. It's incredible engineering, and when it's cubed up to be launched in its payload form, I think about 4 meters cubed, and then it folds out when it's in space to be over 230 square meters. So yeah, amazing. The launch was it was very exciting.
Now, you might be able to answer this question. I'm imagining others have probably thought about it too. So the New Glenn can carry some really big payloads, right?
Mm-hmm.
But with the AST launch, the Bluebird, they're just launching one on this next one, but they're going to be moving then to launch a whole bunch, right, at once?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
So
is this a launch that's kind of carrying other things, or what's
the next one with Blue Origin, which scheduled maybe in 3 weeks, launching just that payload, and it's only one of them, but the intention is they will then stack them to as many as they can fit into the rocket, maybe 4. And their AST's launch schedule is to, we can get into a bit of the details. So they've got large satellites, which it's a smaller constellation compared to Starlink. So they're looking at potentially by the end of the year having 60 satellites up in low Earth orbit, and that's enough to give you global coverage and reasonably ubiquitous connectivity compared to Starlink, which needs thousands just because of the size of the satellite versus the really small satellites from Starlink. So they don't need as many satellites.
And AST Space Mobile, their focus is the mobile connectivity. So it's linking up your smartphone via space when you're outside of any other sort of coverage, when you're outside of normal coverage.
That's it. Yeah, that's their only focus is direct to cellular. So your handset, this small thing here with a small antenna to something really big in the sky that's traveling at 30,000 kilometers an hour, and it's doing beam forming, so it can narrow down. You still need some line of sight. You can go through one wall potentially. But yeah, incredible engineering. They've been doing it for, I guess, AST. Everyone's familiar with AST. They've heard of Starlink, but AST have been working on this behind the scenes for about 10 years. They've got 3,000 patents under what they're doing in terms of the engineering, and they're focused purely on direct to cellular. Starlink have their broadband version where you need a little dish on the ground like your Starlink Minis, which we provide as well. But they're kind of bolting on the cellular capability, but I'm sure that'll change as well. So you've got next generation Starlink. But I think it's, AST very strong in what they're doing, really happy to be a partner and really excited about what that brings. And it's, I think, the next few years are going to be fascinating how this all evolves over time.
Yeah. All right. Well,
But
we
can talk more about that.
Yep. We'll jump through the other news items because I think this is an absolutely fascinating area. Now, SpaceX talking about a 1 million satellite orbital data center constellation. I just don't know what to do with that sort of information. I mean, it was only, I don't know, 5 or so years ago, there were less than 10,000, satellites in space. I think there were less than 5,000, not probably, similar. It's moved very, very quickly to what we've got now. I think it's still under 15,000, isn't it? Or it's around that sort of figure. And then they're talking about 1 million solar powered, basically being able to, operate as orbital data centers for AI.
Sounds pretty cool, eh?
Workloads. It sounds super
science
crazy
fiction
cool,
like,
but also very science fiction. Like, what is the reality here, and what is actually sort of practical? And I guess when we look back on some of the things that have happened in the technology world, often in advance you can't maybe join up the dots and quite work out how that would happen.
Yes,
but over time we end up with some pretty incredible stuff.
Yeah, some far out ideas that
happens.
become reality. I mean, I wouldn't never have thought we could communicate to a satellite from your cell phone, right? And that
not as just a standard cell phone like that. And
so
on,
data centers in space. I've got a science background, so I always look at kind of the detail of it. Yeah. Although I kind of pivoted into quantum physics, so that's a whole different discussion. But some parts make sense, right? You've got effectively 24/7 solar energy, so you need big solar panels to then convert that into something to power a rack of compute in space, and then you need to cool it. And the cooling part, you don't have any air convection, so you need to have some form of other panels to have radiative cooling. Even though it's really cold in space, you need to transfer that heat away. So that's the part I haven't got my head around, how the cooling would actually allow you to scale. You could have small pods of compute up in space. That might make sense anyway for niche use cases. Maybe you're analyzing a huge amount of data you're collecting from the outer reaches of the universe, and you do it more locally there. Yeah, so I think the idea is fascinating because you effectively do have unlimited energy in some respects, and you've got really cold area to dissipate the heat. How it scales, I guess you can scale it by having 1 million of them individually. It's going to be fascinating. So, yeah, and then you're comparing that to what you do on the ground as well, right? So what are the trade-offs between the expense to launch it, to kind of fabricate it in space? Yeah, but I think a bold idea. It's not just Elon. I think you've got a few others. Jeff Bezos is also.
A few people have been talking about it for a little while. Yeah. But now we've kind of got.
Well, we've got something.
SpaceX actually
filing
and Musk, jumping in to some degree. Which, I guess with their talk that SpaceX will be doing an initial public offering.
Timing's perfect.
This is the sort of thing that Musk will want, right? Something with endless potential and a lot of hype around it.
Yes. Yeah, we don't give financial advice, Paul. So that's,
No, invest in these sorts of things at your own risk. No recommendations given. Also, I guess in relation to Musk, we've got that news that Tesla moving into production apparently with the Optimus robot, their Gen 3 humanoid robot. So they're going to be showing that off over the next few weeks. And then there's a bit of a flip side to that. In order for them to be able to scale to where they can produce a lot of robots, and they're talking a long-term capacity of 1 million robots per year, they've advised that they're killing off the Model S and the Model X Teslas, which haven't been available in New Zealand over the last few years because they've only been making left-hand drive models. But it does change the picture somewhat for Tesla to kill those off.
It does. I guess getting more competitive in the EV market. They've led the way, and I guess they're phasing those out and looking at robotics. And I think what I saw quite clearly as well at CES announcements from Jensen and NVIDIA, And I think this is where New Zealand can actually play a part, is around the physical AI, the embodied AI. This is going to be, I think, a really significant step change again. So we've got AI use cases that we're talking around Maltbook, and large language models and amazing things you can do with those. Like, it completely changed our lives. And then you embed that into something physical. And a lot of these things aren't solved yet. They're still working out. The science and the research is still happening. You've got Jan LeCun, who was ex-Meta Facebook chief AI scientist that started up his own thing. He's got quite a different view of where large language models can go in this transformer architecture. He thinks there's potentially a dead end there in terms of intelligence, and he's looking at kind of world models, training models based on actual video feeds. And you think around, he uses an example around a 4-year-old that consumes all this data from sensing and hearing and visual, that they have all this data up to 4, and our AI data sets is equivalent of that of a 4-year-old. So there's going to be a whole lot of that research. I think that's where New Zealand could play a part, and then look at the future of robotics. And you see kind of all the robot failures as well that you've probably seen. Advanced AI humanoid robots, and they go banging into things, smashing dishes,
falling over.
Yeah, but I think we are at a tipping point here, definitely. Yeah. But there's still more breakthroughs to come, I believe.
Yeah, I certainly hope so, because it seems like there's a lot of promise, and there's a lot of potential issues
and issues. There's
right?
societal aspects. There's huge benefits as well.
And in some ways we need time to figure those things out. I mean, still as a society we haven't worked out, is social media good or bad, and what are the right guardrails and so on to put on. There probably isn't even a norm across most parts of society in terms of what's the right way to balance social media and technology access for youngsters, right?
Yes.
And not that there necessarily needs to be a cookie cutter thing, but I think it's still not a solved problem, for probably just about everyone, right? So
that's right.
And then we're obviously moving, as we will continue to do so, down new tracks.
Yes,
there's challenges ahead.
A big bet by Elon, but he's not the only one. So there's a lot happening in that physical AI space, and I think NZ agriculture. There's many different use cases that would benefit the country.
One last item on the general news. Some quite impressive publicity for Whoop and their fitness trackers during the Australian Open, with a bunch of players there, including Carlos Alcaraz and Yannick Sinner being basically made to remove their during the game. What's your thoughts on this? Because I thought this tech has sort of just become quite normal now in these environments.
I'm thinking I need some to improve my tennis game, to be honest. I mean, a lot of the tournaments already allow it as one thing. So the kind of regular ATP tour allows the Whoop devices, as long as it's not providing real-time feedback during a game, and you can do your post-analysis. The Grand Slams that haven't allowed it. So, Alcaraz, I think he got told to take his watch off as he was warming up. So always pros and cons with technology, I think. I don't really, from my personal perspective, I think it's good for the players to have that data. It's probably an advantage if you have it in real time. You saw at the Australian Open the cramping and other things that were going on during the heat. So I think post-match analysis, but then you're trusting the players not to be wearing them anyway. Maybe they're wearing them under their shorts or dresses. But
you've got those sort of scenarios, and if you're gonna ban them, then that can get quite challenging to police it, right?
Yes.
So.
I think I'm on the side of innovation. It's good. I mean, it was great PR and marketing for Whoop anyway, so they lent into it very well.
Yeah. I said they were sending out versions to players that they could attach to their underwear, so as not to get caught. All right. Well, those are our general items. We obviously talked a little bit on varying 2 degrees topics, but keen to delve in a little bit more. Anything else that we need to sort of touch on as far as the 3G shutdown? I think we sort of probably covered most of that. Maybe for those who aren't aware, what is the benefit of freeing up the spectrum that 3G was using, what do we expect that to actually, look like in terms of an impact? Should folks expect, any difference from today onwards that it would be noticeable?
I think over time they will. So spectrum is precious, and it's always a tough decision. And when we do technology changes, we really just don't want to impact anybody. So every technology change we try to do is trying to do it seamless. But with 3G shutdown, you've got handset compatibility, so you just can't do that from everything you try to do. So ultimately, the spectrum that was tied to 3G can be reconfigured into the 5G network and the 4G, so you'll see better performance. Ultimately, that's more capacity, better performance for our customers. More.
How long will that take? Because there will be folks that have maybe been in an area where all they could get, at certain times maybe, or what have you, is can't get 4G or 5G here. I could only get 3G, and 3G's then turned off.
Yep.
How quickly does that spectrum then get turned on with 4G and 5G, and what are the network differences in terms of will they still have coverage in those areas?
So a couple of concepts from coverage different to capacity. So coverage being your potentially coverage gaps. So we spent a lot of time ensuring that our 4G coverage was the same or close to the 3G coverage. So that was our work that we did over the last 3 to 4 years, was making sure the 4G coverage was there. So we had the confidence to turn it off because we had that. So you shouldn't see any coverage differences. But there's always handset behavior where it can favor 3G over 4G. So some of our customers may have experienced this when you're going around the country. It might fall back to 3G and kind of get stuck onto it. So there's kind of that perception that maybe there's 3G in places where there's not 4G. So I think from a coverage perspective, that shouldn't be an issue, but that's what we're making sure we're monitoring today. And if there's potentially fringe cases that but we've done all the analysis we can. So really, it's the investment in capacity. Spectrum for satellite is another aspect. So for AST, we've already got spectrum, but that allows for a spectrum expansion. So in terms of timing, it's going to be we're refarming, as we call it in technical terms, not that technical, over the coming weeks and months. So that'll continuously kind of roll out for the next sort of up to probably 6 months.
Yeah. What would you imagine in terms of performance? Is that something that's kind of is going to be noticeable to people? Having that extra spectrum available, what that can do for performance?
Yeah, it's hard to put a.
I guess you've also got an ongoing
program.
When
you interleave
more
it,
people connecting over time, we're connecting more devices.
Yes.
So we kind of, in a way, we kind of water down the network by adding more connections.
Yes, that's what I say. It's a bit hard to quantify it as a kind of step change because it becomes part of that investment into the 4G and the 5G. So you'll definitely 5G is growing rapidly as well, with handset conversion and our footprints growing significantly. So I think it's more you'll just see. Ultimately, if you get a 5G capable device, you'll see a step change, and then we can keep investing in the 5G network with that spectrum that we've freed up from 3G. So it's more of a transition, I think you'll see. So customers may not really notice, other than you're going to have a great experience and a reliable, consistent experience.
Now, with the move to 5G, which I guess these things have sort of tended to happen around the time that the decades kind of roll over. They do in my mind anyway, and I know that's not perfectly accurate. But it feels like, 5G kind of came in, around sort of 2020 type time frame. 2030, we're going to be up for 6G.
Yes.
Is that sort of a reality in your mind that we are not actually that far away from 6G? Making sense to invest in and roll out, or do you think it's going to be more, we're maybe more like closer to a decade before a full generation?
Because
there's always the interim generations, right? Like because 5G isn't just 5G.
Yes.
There've been constant improvements.
I think I did say somewhere else, probably a decade, so I can
Yeah.
quote that, but
Yeah.
might get ridiculed. Yeah, I think there's been a huge step change from 3G to 4G was a significant, from a kind of architecture perspective, that was a huge step because you're going from what was called a circuit switch network to IP based. And then 5G was the next step. So there's a whole architecture around 5G. And we've got, the new radios are part of it, but then 5G, you've got the standalone core and the advanced parts of 5G that are only still being rolled out globally as well. So there's still, I think, a long road for 5G. What 6G brings is more native, we're going to talk about satellite more, but more native satellite connectivity, as they call it, non-terrestrial networks, more embedded AI, so you get more self-healing networks, and then the location precision piece. So you're getting the higher frequencies, so you can get millimeter or less precision on sensing. So that's where 6G, those kind of key taglines will be part of 6G, but whether it is a step change or it's an evolution is still to be determined, I think.
Yeah.
And there are definitely market pulls and things that happen. There's the marketing part of it that, certain parts of the market like to push, go 6G. I think customers just really want the outcome now. I don't think necessarily they care about the technology as much, if it's a 6G or 5G, although some of us geeks might like the next cool thing, and there's a lot of us out there. Yeah, but it could very likely be an evolution, but there's some key parts of 6G that will be more embedded.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to me that our future generations of mobile connectivity are a little bit like where we've got to with smartphones. There was a period of years where the new smartphone coming out was a huge step change from what was there prior. But now it's really a lot more incremental in terms of what we see. Year to year, there might be little bits and pieces that are exciting, but it's not at the pace that it once was.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And our road ahead, what we're focused on is the 5G rollout continues. We've got our partnership with Ericsson. We invest significant amount of money every year in upgrading our sites to keep up with demand, to ensure our customers have a great experience.
Tell us maybe a bit more around the direct-to-cell sort of satellite, with what you're expecting from AST Space Mobile, and how that will evolve over time, because their offering is quite different probably from what we've heard around the Starlink's kind of offering, which they've started it out on a texting type basis. There's a level of data communication that can be done, and so we've just seen that move along to the next step in terms of WhatsApp calling and so on coming through. But there's a big difference there from what I can tell in terms of bandwidth, in terms of what will be possible, because of the tennis court size sites that AST Space Mobile are putting up.
Yeah, and there's a few other key differences as well, so we can go into it. But we're genuinely really excited. We spent a long time working out our strategy and what we do. We started with Link, you might remember, as one pathway to get kind of text and calling in country. Starlink's, what they're doing, and we had been looking at AST for quite a while and believed in their technology, and we got to the point, it was probably 18 months ago, where we started the engagement. And it's quite exciting because we're actually probably one of the first in the world again. It's happening in the US and Canada, but we're really leading the way. And I think we met last time at the Aerospace Summit end of last year, and you got to meet one of the directors of engineering. Yeah, so the really key difference, these really large satellites we mentioned, they need less of them to have a constellation. And there's this concept of a link budget, so how much signal strength you can transmit from your phone up to a satellite. And having a really big receiver makes a big difference in that. And the other part is the sovereignty aspect. So we're building and owning the landing station. So that's the ground station in New Zealand. And the satellites are effectively just a cell tower in the sky. Yeah. And AST have designed their architecture so it's deeply integrated into the mobile network operator's core. Yeah. That's a key difference. They've partnered with 50 different mobile companies around the world, and they've designed it to be kind of that principle basis, which means handovers are seamless. You get emergency broadcast calling. You can do things like mission-critical networks. We've got guarantees around our regulations with the government that your data stays in country. The Starlink, we don't actually know. It's a bit of a black box in terms of some of those areas. So,
Right.
yeah, for us, we've got that governance and that control. We're already building our landing station at the moment. We in Martin, in the Great Manawatu. So that's got great kind of line of sight to the sky, which is fantastic. So that's our first landing station there. We're hoping we'll be keeping our customers up to date in terms of timelines, because there's probably two critical paths there. It's getting our landing station ready and integrated, and then there's the launch schedule from AST, which means the more birds and satellites they have in the sky, the better the service availability is. So we're hoping mid-year to have something in market, but we'll be watching the launch schedule in terms of how that goes, because rocket launches are still very hard.
Yeah.
And what that means is day one, it's data, voice, and text. It's what customers, I think, expect from a service. It's still limited data. It's not going to be compared to a terrestrial or a tower with a 5G service, but you could expect to be making a video call. The great examples, I think, that would be really useful, particularly for New Zealand businesses that are in different industries like forestry and farming, is that lone worker scenario where you're actually out at a site, you're out of coverage, and you have an emergency, and you can keep using your apps. You don't need to rebuild your apps. You can have a data connection. Search and rescue, many different use cases. IoT is another one where if you have ubiquitous connectivity over New Zealand, imagine what you could do from a data and sensing perspective. And unmodified handsets is the third part. So you don't need to change anything. You've got existing handsets that just work. We've got to test a lot of this, so that's what we're working on at the moment, get the landing station built, and then we'll get into testing, and we'll be able to talk about that more. But that's,
right, because I guess there can be a level of, we talk about unmodified, but maybe we need new software, new firmware from Apple.
From everything I've seen,
Android
no. Unmodified means unmodified.
Really?
But again, we'll make sure that those claims are actually accurate. We'll be testing everything. We'll be testing a range of devices. There could be scenarios where the handsets are just not great handsets from an antenna perspective. There might be weird scenarios, but from a software perspective, it doesn't change. And the other benefit you get with these large satellites to the handset doesn't have to work as hard, so it should be better on battery life in those scenarios. But yeah, we're really excited about that. And the sovereignty aspect of having visibility control in country. So your data's safe.
Yeah,
it's coming
not
from
going outside
your handset to a satellite back down to our network in New Zealand. Yeah.
And how many landing stations would you expect to need over the next few years?
So this is an interesting one. So one landing station technically can cover all of New Zealand or even more. The way they block up the kind of New Zealand into kind of around 50 square kilometre chunks, and these big antennas up in space. They've got thousands of these phased array antennas, as they call them, where they can dynamically do beam forming and focus on one area. So technically one landing station with an uplink tracking multiple satellites would work. You need a minimum 2 for resilience, so you'd be at least 2. But from a capacity perspective, you don't need more than 2.
And do you have a feel yet for how you pay for this? Is this something that you charge in a special way for? I mean, I know my experience. Most of my day, I don't need to be getting access to cellular-based mobile connectivity.
Yeah.
But when you are in a scenario where that's all that's available, that's pretty handy. You might be willing to pay for it, but I think most of us would prefer, hey, that's on you guys. No one wants to pay any more, right?
Yep.
But there are sort of realities with an investment like this.
Yeah, I'd love to get your feedback more on what you think we should be doing. We're still working that out. We think, some people will find it really valuable. Others, like you mentioned, probably won't use it that often, may not want to use it as well, but when they need it, they can opt in. Yeah. We do think there'll be some sort of add-on aspect to it. It is a significant investment for us. We're talking in the tens of millions of dollars that we're investing in the service in country. So there's definitely a component of that. But yeah, we're still working through what those are. And I'm just the tech guy, so I can't tell you, Paul. But yeah, I'd love to get feedback on and that's what we're doing with our customers and market research at the moment, is we want it to be affordable in some way. It can't be unaffordable, but we expect there to be a charge with it.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see, what gets landed on there. And with you having those landing stations, does this mean that you'll be exclusive with AST Space Mobile? Is that the initial arrangement that you've got?
No, I think we're quite pragmatic as 2degrees. We just, we looked at AST, they're fantastic. We don't actually want to exclude anyone else necessarily either. We think it's good for the country. So, I think, we just, pragmatically, great arrangement with AST. We'll launch it into New Zealand first. And, if others want to follow, they can follow. That's fine with us.
Yeah, it's probably a lot more as we get a bit closer to that. We're keen to hear more. In terms of other things going on at 2degrees, you've completed your internal sort of digital transformation where you're been bringing together sort of Vocus 2degrees systems. Obviously, you've done that over a period of years, and you've got that one. You got that one ticked off. That's quite an achievement.
Still got a little bit of hair left, Paul. Yeah, I mean, in the telecommunications world, and like in any other industries, you collect a lot of legacy. We've been through a lot of mergers and acquisitions, but what we've been good at is tackling it early and in an incremental way. And we've got amazing teams. So I just want to shout out to the teams that are incredible here in country, mostly here in Auckland, but also Wellington and Christchurch and some other areas in the NZ. So a bunch of passionate people. We consider ourselves more of a software company than a telco, and we're building our own software. So our main kind of heart of the software is what we call Tahi, software that runs pretty much all of 2degrees, what we call the BSS, which is a business support system, which does the billing and all the workflows, as well as the OSS, which is the kind of operating end workflows into the network. And that was quite a key decision early in the merger when 2degrees and Vocus came together. Is like, do we back ourselves? Do we continue to build software? Do we buy? And we backed ourselves, and that's kind of unheard of in the telco world. Normally, you're buying enterprise grade software. So I'm really proud of the team. Not many telco transformations go well. This went extremely well. Migrated 2 million customers from legacy proprietary systems into our own stack, and we call it a hyperscale system. I think it's comparable to like a Xero story or a TradeMe story in terms of software, what we've achieved.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's set us up for the future now. We've got different kind of channels. We've got what we call our platform called Flex, which is business focused. So customers can log into Flex and change services on demand, converge from mobile and fixed networks, as well as API first, so you can integrate system to system. We power the likes of Network for Learning, for example. All the schools in New Zealand are on our network, but they're connected through these APIs into Flex and using that portal. Sky TV is another example. So really a lot of software, a lot of hard work, a lot of sweat, a lot of challenges. As you can imagine, it's not just a technical issue. It's often bringing people together on that journey. But that was done, really successful. Now we've invested more in actually our talent. We're hiring more software developers. We're investing in engineering locally to really innovate from this platform. So we're going from this integration phase to an innovation phase. So we're just leveraging all those amazing people to build the next great products.
Yep. And you've been continuing on an AI journey, including working with HPE on private AI platform. Any highlights you can share there before we wrap up? Because I know we're just about at the end.
Last week we've been working with Hewlett-Packard Enterprise, and we've got lots of different AI use cases that we've already been working on, going from this journey from kind of AI as a kind of augmenting your work to more autonomy. And we talked around OpenClaw and what that can do. So we're really focused on what is a self-driving network. So having AI agents that can run and control the network. And to do that, you need to have control of your AI. So we've invested in a local, effectively a sovereign AI platform in our data centers. Which means we can choose the models. We're not training models, but we're taking open source models, refining them to then look to kind of close that loop with network automation. What that means for customers, ultimately, in some respects, similar to what we're talking around Spectrum, this part of the phase, they won't notice anything apart from a more reliable service. We've got tens of thousands of components in our network, from our radio network to our fiber network, optical networks. optics, lasers. When you add those all up, it's actually in the hundreds of thousands. So you get all this data and telemetry is too much for just a human to take in. So this is where AI comes in to kind of help with that. And you need the AI. For us, you need it locally when you're putting it into those kind of critical workflow scenarios. Maybe different to, reading emails. You're actually controlling networks that run, government services, emergency services. So that's the focus, and really excited around having kind of aligns to that AST aspect as well, around sovereignty, having data in country, having the sovereign AI capability in country too. But really, we're not training models. There's definitely different definitions of sovereign AI. But we're owning the destiny of those models, if that makes sense, Paul.
Yeah. No, it's good to see just how many things that you've got going on and you're progressing forward with.
Yeah. No, it's exciting times.
Yeah.
I think we talked about it all: space, data centers in space, AI. Just didn't cover quantum physics, so we'll do that next time.
Next time around.
Yeah.
Great to catch up. Yeah, thanks very much for the insights. It's been absolutely fascinating. And of course, a big thank you to all our show partners, including 2 Degrees, Workday, 1NZ, Gorilla Technology, and Spark. So yeah, great to hear from 2 Degrees side today. If you've been listening to the audio, of course, you can find us also on YouTube and across other platforms from the video. Thanks everyone for listening in. That's us. We'll catch you next week. See ya.
The New Zealand Tech Podcast, brought to you by Gorilla Technology, proactive and strategic IT.